Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Future Ready, Aligning Industry and Higher Education so Students Earn Credentials Towards In-Demand Jobs. I'm your host for today, Kathy McDonald, Assistant Director for Network Partnerships with the Florida College Access Network. Many thanks to CareerSource Florida for supporting this webinar. I'm excited to welcome on the call today guest presenter Tessa Lesage, who is the architect and director of the LCAN Future Makers Coalition, Southwest Florida's regional premier collective impact initiative and talent hub as designated by the Lumina Foundation. Future Makers touts a network of over 300 individuals and 165 partner organizations with a shared goal of transforming the workforce in Southwest Florida by prioritizing students who face the greatest challenges to attainment. Lesage has been with the Southwest Florida Community Foundation, the backbone organization to Future Makers, since 2014 as the Director of Social Innovation and Sustainability. She works to partner with government and business to facilitate collaboration and innovation around their 5-county region's most pressing issues. I'm also thrilled to welcome on today's webinar Jennifer Thayer, who is the Workforce Planning and Development Manager with Lee Health, where she is responsible for identifying the gap between the present and future workforce needs and building bridges to fill those gaps. On a mission to transform the Southwest Florida workforce, she's focused on educating and promoting degrees, certificates, and credentials that provide a pathway to high-paying, in-demand careers in healthcare. Next, I'd like to welcome Megan Cochran, who's the healthcare sector strategist with CareerSource Brevard. Megan has held progressive roles in workforce development for the last 20 years, providing individual case management, career center, leadership, and business services for 2 workforce boards. She has a BA in Human Services and writes and manages healthcare industry workforce grants. I'm also thrilled to welcome on the webinar today Terry Jones, who's the founder and executive director at Elderly Compassionate Care at Macedonia Education Technology and Career Academy. METCA is a faith-based and veteran program that bridges low-income individuals to healthcare training scholarships, provides mentoring and enrollment resources, and job placement assistance, resulting in workforce improvement and economic stability for the community. Terry is a retired United States Army captain. She is also retired from Eastern Florida State College. She holds a master's degree from Webster University in Management and Leadership, a postgraduate certificate in Enrollment Management from Capella University, and is completing her PhD from North Central University in Leadership and Higher Education. Now, before we get started today, a few housekeeping items. First, we welcome your questions. You can put those in the box in your dashboard, on which you should see on the right side of your screen if you're viewing from a desktop computer. If you're not seeing a question box, click on the orange box that has the arrow in it. That'll open up your dashboard for you. Second, we'd love to hear what's resonating with you, so please share what you're learning on social media. You can find us on Twitter at FL College Access. Please use the hashtag FCAN and or hashtag Talent Strong Florida so we can find you. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. All materials will be available within a week of the recording. You should see a copy of today's slides in the handout section of your dashboard. If you don't, no worries, we will send it out to you via email after the webinar. For those who are new to FCAN, our mission is to lead the collaborative movement to ensure every Floridian achieves an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. Our vision is to build a Florida working together where education is the pathway to economic mobility for all. We do our work in 3 primary ways. First, FCAN publishes research and data on evidence-based practices and policy opportunities to strengthen Florida's talent pool. Second is through our local college access networks, which you'll hear a little bit about today. Our LCANs represent 82% of the state's population, and these organizations are made up of community leaders who come together to create solutions and remove barriers to support local talent development. Finally, we do our work by coordinating 4 College Ready Florida initiatives that support students in continuing their education after high school. Our work is guided by our 7 conditions for success, which you can find out more about on our website. Today's webinar provides great examples of many of these conditions, particularly opportunity for everyone, multiple pathways to success, lifelong learning, and finally, community collaboration. And with that, to get us started today, I'm so thrilled to welcome Susan Bossy, who's the Director of Business and Workforce Development with CareerSource Florida. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you so much, Kathy. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. CareerSource Florida is excited to partner with FCAN. And like FCAN, we know that the only way to build a resilient economy in the state of Florida is to cultivate a well-educated, well-trained workforce. Next slide. We too believe in creating opportunities for everyone, and our network of 24 local workforce development boards and their professional teams across the state work hard every day to make that a reality. CareerSource Florida is the governor's principal workforce policy and investment board, charged with guiding workforce development for the state of Florida. Our network, consisting of more than 100 career centers across the state, connects employers with qualified and skilled talent and Floridians with technical and career development opportunities to achieve economic prosperity for all. Next slide. We know that in order to provide training opportunities that will make Floridians resilient workers in the state, we must first recognize which skills companies need both now and well into the future, and then align and provide opportunities for the attainment of short-term training, credentials, and stacking credentials. This is why our focus is on sector strategies, which are business-driven workforce solutions. By listening to business and industry needs, and then aligning education and training partners, economic partners, and other community resources to address the needs and challenges of businesses, we can develop a coordinated strategy to build a skilled talent pipeline for those industries recognized as providing the greatest growth potential. These industries include manufacturing, information technology, business and professional services, aviation and aerospace, and healthcare and life sciences. Working cooperatively with the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, the Florida Department of Education, and education providers throughout the state, the CareerSource Florida Network utilizes many training tools to prepare workers for jobs in high-growth industries, including on-the-job training, registered apprenticeships, and employed worker training. Next slide. To raise awareness of registered apprenticeships among businesses and job seekers, the Apprentice Florida branding campaign was launched in 2019, showcasing the benefits of this time-tested talent development model. Next slide. Visit CareerSource Florida Sector Strategies to find more information on sector strategies and to work with one of our business and workforce development team members. Thank you for letting me join you today, and I'd be more than happy to connect you to any resources within the CareerSource Florida network.
Thank you, Susan. We, along with CareerSource Florida and our statewide partners, FCAN recently launched the Talent Strong Florida campaign to raise awareness for the need of all Floridians to earn in education beyond high school to build economic resiliency. COVID-19 has exposed how vulnerable economic stability is for many Floridians. A full 58% of Floridians surveyed in May 2020 said that they have suffered job loss, reduced hours, or pay cuts. And an analysis conducted by United Way of Florida estimated that 46% of households struggle to afford basic needs despite being employed. That means that in many cases, people not only need a new job, they often need to upskill to a better one that offers more economic stability. Nearly 50% of total US jobs are at risk of automation in the next several decades, and COVID-19 is accelerating this in some industries and sectors, according to a recent McKinsey study. in the aftermath of COVID-19, some of the jobs are at risk of disappearing entirely, as we saw after the last recession, and Floridians need to prepare for the jobs of the future. Many companies will simply not rehire to existing levels and instead downsize, right-size, shift to automation, or some combination. So Floridians need support earning credentials towards jobs that are less likely to be lost due to automation. Florida's fastest growing occupations all require education beyond high school. That's why, just as CareerSource Florida has regional workforce development boards throughout the state of Florida focused on aligning educational attainment with in-demand career opportunities, FCAN also supports local college access networks who work collaboratively across sectors to create educational pathways that lead to economic stability. There are now 17 LCANs that bring leaders together from higher education, school districts, business, philanthropy, nonprofit, workforce boards, and local government, working together to uncover barriers to success and to dissolve some of those barriers. In many cases, LCANs, in partnership with their local CareerSource regional office, analyze the number and types of credentials earned at local educational institutions and compare it with where job growth and talent development needs are going to ensure we're helping students and adult learners earn credentials that will lead to in-demand jobs in their region that are at lower risk of loss due to automation. You'll be hearing a couple of examples today from Brevard and from Future Makers Coalition. But next, let's get you all started by sharing a little bit about how your community is ensuring alignment between post-secondary credentials and in-demand jobs. You can vote for any and all that reflect the work being done in your local community. So for instance, higher education institutions and key industry sectors meet regularly to discuss emerging talent development needs. We compare labor projections for our region with the credentials our education institutions are producing. We partner with community organizations who can provide gaps in training towards in-demand jobs. Or finally, we're not currently aligning credential production with what our employers are looking for. So go ahead and vote now. Let us know what types of activities are going on in your local community. Let's just give that another couple of seconds here. Couple more votes. Okay, so let me go ahead and close that out and share the results with you all. So it looks like about 64% of you have your higher education institutions and industries meeting regularly to share information about emerging needs. 62% partner with community organizations to fill those critical education gaps, and 47% are comparing regional projections. So great, great. Thanks to everyone for participating today. Okay, with that, let me turn it over to Tessa Lesage, who will get us started sharing a little bit about what this alignment looks like in Southwest Florida. Tessa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kathy. It is such a pleasure to be here today. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, our healthcare system alignment work. It is an absolute pleasure to share sort of some of our successes and some of the lessons that we've learned on behalf of a growing team of future makers who are working hard to recruit for credentialing programs, specifically certified nursing assistants and medical assistants. And the end goal is to have them access employment with one of our local employers. And that list of employers that are working directly with us is growing every single day. This effort is absolutely aligned with CareerSource Florida's sector strategy solutions and our targeted occupations list. We know that healthcare is a high growth industry in our region, and the demand for nurses is profound. Given the impact of COVID-19, the current opportunity for individuals to enter into a career in healthcare is tremendous. We know that these are sustainable jobs, and Future Makers work is focused on career pathways and opportunities for lifelong learning in healthcare. This program has proven to be scalable and replicable and, in other industries as well. So, but that the one requirement is that a training program has to exist to support those industries. So Kathy already explained a little bit about Future Makers, but we're in Southwest Florida. So we are Hendry, Glades, Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties. We have very rural communities. Our population is just over 1 million people, with all 5 counties included. We have about 605,000 working age adults, and about 41.2% of them have a credential beyond a high school diploma. We have a variety of partners, 165 plus organizations are part of this coalition, and the Southwest Florida Community Foundation is the backbone organization. So we're sort of navigating the convening and the partnerships and bringing folks all to the table. Next slide. So our healthcare system alignment project actually started in 2014 when Lee Health came to us. They actually applied for a grant from the Community Foundation to see if they could get money to overcome the financial barriers to having enough people enrolled in our certified nursing programs in the technical colleges in Lee County. And when we came together, it was not funded as a grant, but we did find a scholarship that was aimed at a specific community in our region, the Dunbar community, which is a highly diverse and very low income community in Fort Myers in Lee County. And we were able to use that scholarship in a creative way to see if we could, first of all, if it was true that the financial burden of entering into a program at the technical college was the barrier to getting more people in the programs and earning the credential and into these jobs. Lee Health was having persistent vacancies of CNAs, and that persists still today. It's a high demand career. It's an entry level career, and we know that it is a foot in the door to really lifelong learning and building on a career pathway within the healthcare industry. So we decided to bring together CareerSource Southwest Florida, Lee Health, Fort Myers, and Cape Coral Technical Colleges to see if we could come up with an idea to test this out using the scholarship. And again, we assumed that the problem were the financial barriers. We held a recruitment event, and at that event, we recruited targeting the community that the scholarship was aimed at for about 2 weeks before the event. And we brought people into one of our CareerSource one-stop offices, and all of the partners were available. And the idea was that we would do an overview of what the employment opportunities were for this career pathway, and then give every individual that attended an opportunity to do an interview with the technical college, with CareerSource, and with the employer, just to get a sense of what would be needed to start the program, to understand their financial needs, and to see if we could start to overcome some of those barriers. And then also to give the employer an opportunity to do a pre-interview and get to know their potential employees. And what we found a lot of things. So next slide. What we found was that in fact, it was not just financial barriers. It cost $1,200 to enter into the Certified Nursing Assistant program at one of the technical colleges. And that is a barrier, but it wasn't a barrier necessarily in the way that we thought. We found that we needed to have a pool of flexible gap funding to address a variety of problems in order to help under and unemployed individuals who currently did not hold a credential beyond a high school diploma enter into these programs, and to support them along the way. So a lot of times we heard things like, if a $30 application fee or the cost to provide to take a drug test before entering into the program shouldn't be a barrier. Anyone can afford that. that they need to have skin in the game. You know, those were some of the things that we heard in the beginning of our work together. What we found was that those small fees, which a lot of us view as small fees, are in fact a barrier. And so having the ability to use funding and pay those up front, pre-reimburse in cases where maybe reimbursement options are available in terms of financial aid, was critically important. We found that we had to increase advertising for people to even have knowledge of the program. People didn't know that they had this opportunity. We had to have more dynamic collaboration between the education and workforce partners. We knew that, well, what we quickly found, I should say, is that a lot of us held sort of stories or ideas about what our programs are, what sort of the rules were into entering into the programs. We had a lot of stories about each other's organizations that weren't necessarily based in reality. And I think that was maybe one of the most profound things that happened when we started to work together. And it shows why the system sometimes doesn't work well together, when we started to kind of uncover and unpack all of the things we thought we knew about each other's programs. We found really enormous barriers with the testing company, and it had us change a lot of the ways that we address the testing, because people were waiting longer than it takes to actually complete the program to finish the test. And so that was a big barrier that we were able to overcome together. We found, from the employer's perspective, you know, we were constantly getting feedback from the employers, and they were telling us that the candidates had the skills from a nursing perspective, but they didn't have a lot of the soft skills that were needed to be able to actually complete the applications, or to make it through the interview, or to have that bedside manner and some of the soft skills that are required in a nursing position. And we worked together to overcome those. We're still working on that. A lot of our candidates needed professional attire, and needed help really understanding how to navigate the interview process. And then finally, the thing that we're always working on still to this day, and I think if there's one thing I will tell you, the key to all of this is bringing all of the partners back to the table over and over and over again, is that you have to be able to work together. You have to be able to say to one another, hey, look, this rule, this thing that you're doing, it's making this unworkable for us. And we have to figure out a way to find a solution. And that has probably been one of the most valuable things that we've learned. The system is designed to get people into the training programs and into the jobs. But if we are not actively communicating with one another, the system becomes broken. Next slide. So what are the results? This has been one of our most successful programs. It's one of the first big things that Future Makers did, working directly with employers in a training program and trying to align trying to align those systems to get people into jobs. And we found that we really adapting and continuous improvement to this day. Here we are in 2020 from 2014. The continuous improvement is key. You have to be open to changing what you're doing. COVID really taught us a lesson in that, when we could no longer hold those recruitment events in person. So we're constantly working together to rise to the challenge. We replicated it with medical assistants. We have some LPN programs now that are joining in the mix. We filled 80% of vacant CNA positions, and 95% of medical assisting graduates are currently employed within the local workforce. 91% of the students enrolled within the health science program are women. So another strategy, if you're thinking about taking this on, and we did this, is tapping into funding programs that are specific for women. The Southwest Florida Community Foundation has a Women's Legacy Fund, and it's a multi-donor fund, and that group of donors decided that they loved this program. They loved the outcomes. They loved the idea of helping someone start a career, whether they're under or unemployed or traditional age coming out of school, but they do focus on women. So we were able to access that funding. And really the programs recruit, if you're not familiar with Southwest Florida, you saw how big that the region is. The programs actually recruit from pretty far away. So I think that you shouldn't be short-sighted in thinking about who your potential students might be. advertising far and wide is definitely a benefit. And so with that, I'm going to pass it on to my amazing partner, Jennifer, to share the rest of our story.
All right, well, thank you, Tessa. And yes, as the data shows, this program has been a great success, and we're happy to continue to see our partnerships grow and expand. And I am myself proud to call myself a future maker. Lee Health understands the importance of collaboration, and we have seen amazing outcomes as a result of this partnership. One of the major benefits such a program as this has is that the instructors work alongside our clinical teams as learners gain hands-on experience, ensuring they have the access to best practice clinical care. Another real-time benefit is that this program serves to fill in-demand roles. As the largest employer in Lee County, Lee Health has over 14,000 team members. As such, our staffing needs are great. Last year alone, we hired a total of 551 CNAs. All students in this program are encouraged to apply at our organization, and we remain in contact with the students throughout their studies and throughout post-graduation. Last year, we hired 43 participants of this program, with many others accepting opportunities with our other local partner employers, which include long-term care providers, hospice service providers, and assisted living facilities. We partner with our schools to actively recruit students to this program. We encourage them to envision a career in healthcare, supported by an employer who will train, offer tuition assistance, and encouragement along the way. Next slide, please. So, why is a partnership like this so beneficial? Quite simply, collaboration brings community together and makes it stronger. We have all heard the expression, it takes a village. This is no different. Relationships like these bridge the gap between employers and educators to meet real-time industry needs. While we focus on entry-level healthcare jobs, these programs can be replicated across industries. With these partnerships, you are able to develop future pipelines to prepare for anticipated growth and industry shift. Forecasting for the future and training for it will ensure you have the workforce as the need arises. This also ensures you are building a sustainable workforce at the community level. Recruitment outside of our market is expensive, very expensive. Investing in our own keeps talent local, something all industries can benefit from. Next slide, please. So what's next for our Future Makers Healthcare Alliance? I believe the sky is the limit. We are currently exploring what other in-demand programs can we replicate, possibly lab sciences, respiratory therapy, or surgical technology, professions we know are in shortage and in demand today. Additionally, we need to continue to encourage participation and expand our partnerships. I am happy to report that since June of this year, this coalition has expanded representation beyond Lee County to include Collier and Immokalee. The larger the representation, the further the impact. Our expansion is dependent on marketing and breaking silos. Through these efforts, the hope is that the interest will expand and the longer bridges will be built. We have to innovate and be creative in this new digital world, relying heavily on social media and virtual events. And finally, our success is dependent on sustainability, which comes from funding from employers and philanthropic efforts. You can imagine this is challenging during these difficult financial times. However, we will continue our outreach efforts in rigorous fashion by measuring success, sharing our stories with individuals like yourselves, and providing the data to support the return on investment. An investment in enriching their community and keeping talent local. Next slide, please. At this time, I'd like to thank you for allowing us to present and share our success stories. I hope you found the information useful. I'd like to turn it back to Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, Tessa. Great example of what partnership and alignment looks like. For another great example, I'm excited to now welcome Megan and Terry to share their story in Brevard. Megan?
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for letting us be part of today's webinar. We are really excited to share what we're doing in Brevard to promote talent pipeline development in the healthcare industry and through providing career progression resources for Brevard's underserved residents. I'll begin our presentation and then turn it over to my partner, Terry, and then wrap it up. Okay, next slide, please. At CareerSource Brevard, we began to utilize industry sector strategies to support key industries where labor market information demonstrates high growth and employment options that allow career pathways where entry-level occupations can advance to high skill, high wage opportunities through continuous learning. This allows CareerSource Brevard to focus efforts and our limited resources to yield the best outcomes for talent pipeline development. Sector strategies start with collaborations, as we've learned, between stakeholders and focus on addressing specific industry sector needs by listening to the businesses in that sector. Sector strategies, as you've heard previously, connect workers to relevant training and education and connect employers to skilled workers. For this purpose, CareerSource Brevard began convening healthcare industry representatives, educational partners, workforce development entities, and community and faith-based stakeholders in December of 2016 to form the Brevard Healthcare Workforce Consortium. We worked together to identify and implement actionable strategies to strengthen our local healthcare talent pipeline. Next slide. The Brevard Healthcare Workforce Consortium industry participants primarily represent hospital, home health, skilled nursing, the health department, and assisted living providers. Together, they have identified the high need in-demand occupations to include home health aides, certified nursing assistants, licensed practical nurses, and registered nurses. These occupations require specialized training and or certification and licensure, and currently Brevard does not have a large enough pool of qualified candidates to meet the hiring needs. Next slide, please. We took a look at our education partner related training options to see if their programs were at enrollment capacity. We decided if the programs were not at capacity enrollments, we would focus our efforts on recruiting training candidates for the programs. The registered nurse associate programs were at capacity enrollments. However, the practical nursing programs were not. We decided to focus our efforts on recruiting talent for the practical nursing programs. Next slide, please. We also believe this was an opportunity to advance the skills of certified nursing assistants where they already had strong foundational training and experience. This would also result in increased earnings to a living wage. CareerSource Brevard scholarship recipients, the practical nursing graduates are reporting $18 to $21 per hour to start new jobs, and that's sometimes nearly doubling their earnings as CNAs, so that's incredible. Having identified our talent pipeline development goal, we needed to create a strategy for the recruitment process. This is when I received a call from our faith-based consortium partner, Terry Jones, with the Macedonia Education, Technology, and Career Academy, MEDCA Elderly Compassionate Care Program, who came with a heart for elevating our community members through training them to become compassionate nurses to serve our elderly. Terry had a strategy for recruiting and training practical nursing candidates through collaboration with consortium and community partners and CareerSource Brevard. And I'm proud to introduce Terry Jones, founder and executive director of MEDCA's Elderly Compassionate Care Program.
Terry, we can't hear you.
Thank you, Megan, for the introduction. I want to start by saying, as Tessa presented, we are also a scalable and replicable program. And we also require the support of training institutions in order to make this happen. So it's a great opportunity when we decided to implement the MEDCA Elderly Compassionate Care Program to work with CareerSource Brevard. And actually what we are feet on the ground. So we find the nurses, we find individuals who need our support. We started our initiative in January of 2017. And I can tell you by September 2017, after a hurricane, we were on the ground up and running. So that was a great opportunity. Next slide, please. And one of the things I want to share with everyone, we started with just 3 individuals or 3 organizations within our program. As you can see on the slide, that was CareerSource Brevard, Eastern Florida State College, and the Macedonian Missionary Baptist Church. And today we're up to 20 plus partners. Not everybody's even identified today because we just keep growing. So we are proud to be able to share with the community and help by branching out and working with others who are also feet on the ground. I want to share with you our process. Next slide, please. And I do remember hearing Tessa and also Jennifer talk about recruitment. Fortunately for us, our cost of recruitment is down to literally almost nothing. What you see in front of you, the recruitment flyer, that's our cost to have it published. And this community, maybe because of the nature of the community and it's small and very intimate, we use a little bit of social media to get the word out, but we've been doing this since 2017. So whenever we get a flyer out, it just spreads like wildfire. And individuals start calling me. They start finding out, okay, how, Miss Terry, how can I get into this recruitment fair? And we understand the enrollment funnel process. So we know not everybody who comes to our recruitment event is going to end up being a potential candidate. But that's the first place to start. You gain information, you learn about the program, you identify yourself. Do I meet the credentials? Can I pass a background check? And then from that process, we will invite you to come back to, next slide, please, our program orientation. All this used to be face-to-face, and now we have structured it where it's as a Zoom presentation, of course, because of COVID. But the invitation to come back means that you have filled out, first of all, the MECA application. We give you some tasks at the recruitment fair. You have completed the CareerSource Brevard, the www.employflorida registration form, and there's 1 or 2 other little tasks associated with CareerSource Brevard we ask you to do. And those candidates who have done that, that tells us they're serious about going into the nursing program. So then we invite them back for an orientation, and we give them some more specifics in terms of what we need them to do to move them forward and through the process. Next slide, please. So one of the things we created as partners, and this is MECA combined with CareerSource Brevard and also one of our training institutions. Actually, we do this with all of our training institutions. So you can see the center logo that says Brevard Nursing Academy. That one is specific to that particular training institution. And we thought what would really help the students, and it has, is to create a checklist, step-by-step process of everything they need to do, because we didn't want the student to go into a situation where they go to one agency, they're told something differently, they go to another agency, they're told something different, and then there's this level of frustration, and at times, often, we know when we're dealing with, particularly with our low income, and they already feel so defeated. It's just like, nobody wants to help me. So we created this checklist, which is such a huge support for them, and it walks them through the process. One of the things I did, this is about 3 pages, so you're only seeing the first page of it, but I highlight in green what's MECA, I highlight in yellow what's CareerSource initiatives, and I highlight in blue what are the initiatives that relate to the training institution. But the sequence of order is so important, because if they get that sequence out of step, then they're going to feel like, oh my gosh, now I got to go back and do this over again, or why didn't somebody tell me? So this checklist really plays very beneficial for our student candidates. Next slide, please. We also decided to create what I call, through the MECA program, we created a TABE Bootcamp and a TEAS prep course. So the TABE Bootcamp is designed for our CNA candidates and our LPNs candidates. This is done through a partnership with, well, this particular TABE Bootcamp that we recently just did, we all do the partnership with Brevard Adult Ed. And Brevard Adult Ed literally is helping the students pass the TABE assessment. The TABE assessment requires them to actually be tested on reading, language, and math. And that is a barrier for students if they don't get the scores they need to get into the LPN training or the CNA training. So we have our candidates, they have to go through this TABE Bootcamp. Quickly, the way the TABE Bootcamp works, it's a 3-week program. We run it 4 days a week. And it's 3 hours, just 3 hours in those 4 days a week period. And those sessions are designed, we initially set up where they would do 1 week math, 1 week reading, 1 week language. And that was kind of to mirror what the TABE assessment was going to look like. But now we have such a phenomenal instructor from Brevard Adult Ed. We let him kind of figure out how to use those 3 weeks that will best serve the student and get them to the next level they want. And sometimes, I say that because sometimes he may spend a little bit more time on the math or a little bit more time on the language or reading, depending on the makeup of the class. This was initially done as a face-to-face initiative. Now we do it as a Zoom, but the first Zoom one we did was a couple of months ago, and it worked out perfectly. We also, and our TABE Bootcamp is grant funded. We get the funding through CareerSource, and sometimes we use some of the foundations in our community that will also help fund this program. And it's only $30. So it's certainly worth it, the bang for the buck. It gets its money worth. We also have the TEAS Prep course, which our LPN candidates go through. And we designed the TEAS Prep course to allow the students, again, to take them to that next level to help them pass the TABE assessment. Individuals who are trying to go into the LPN program, they have to score a little bit higher. So our students who are going through the TABE Bootcamp and TEAS Prep course, they are actually testing 3 times just through my program on the TABE. 3 times to help them reinforce. And they also get the benefit, not just the training, but also the online TABE Academy or Essentials. With our TEAS Prep course, we also found that it helps those students who have to take a TEAS assessment as a entrance exam into the LPN program. It helps them learn how to get their scores up and be familiar or become familiar with what's expected on a TEAS assessment. Additionally, something that I found is very powerful, it helps our students identify if this is really the thing for them. So what I tell the students, I'd rather see you drop out somewhere at my level. Our TEAS Prep course is $200, $250 to include getting into the program, online program, to get the materials. So I'd rather see them drop out if they can't make it at my level, as opposed to going into the LPN training, getting that large sum of money from CareerSource and then drop out after a couple of weeks. That's just not, that's unacceptable. The way the TEAS Prep course is structured, it is 6 weeks, 2 days a week, and 2 hours in each session. And this sounds like, well, gosh, they hardly have any class time. The intent, though, is to make sure that these students will study, because this is what is expected when you go into these LPN programs. They're highly accelerated, and you have to put in the personal study time. Next slide, please. So when the students are recruited, there is criteria. CareerSource requires them to meet some type of income eligibility. They also have to take soft skills. I think Jennifer talked about soft skills in Tessa, and that's very important. So they go through a soft skills assessment as well and a testing. And we also require them, for our LPN candidates, to have at least 1 year of healthcare training. Again, we want to make sure when you look at the amount of funds that go through that go towards their training, we want to make sure that these students are absolutely certain they have some experience and background, and this is something that they feel they can do and they want to do because they've been in the career field for a while. So 1 year is our earmark, and then we take them. Next slide, please. So we have a situation with a young lady, Cassandra. You can see Cassandra. She actually graduated our program. She came through CareerSource in Mecca, and she graduated the LPN program in December of 2019. She recently passed her NCLEX. This was her second time taking it, and she's so excited. So she's one of our success stories, and we have several success stories like this. She certainly is not the only one, but she's just a shining light because she's one of the first students that went through that class that graduated in December 2019. And my church, the Macedonia Church, which is part of the leadership team, they've through the first, this was the first graduation ceremony for this young lady. So, and also in this program with the institution that we support. So we're real proud of her. Next slide, please. So we talk about results. We're really proud of our results. We have trained over 100 students, whether in the HHA, CNA, and LPN career fields. We have our students in so many stages of training. As I mentioned to you earlier, we have the PA boot camp, we have the TEAS Prep Academy, and then of course we have them in the training institutions. So they're all over the place, all right? So we know that sometimes they're just waiting to get the grant funding. And like I said, one of the biggest barriers for our students is passing that TABE assessment. So through us and working with CareerSource, they get plenty of opportunities just to retest, and we want them to do that. We encourage them to do that because we really do want to see them get the funding to go on. Beyond CareerSource funding, we also have received some private funding. One of the things we did this year is we extended our services for individuals who are LPNs and they want to transition to RN. And we have been blessed. We've got private individuals who come out and they said, okay, we'll fund you. We're also working with foundations, and we've gotten additional funding through some of our foundations to continue training with our home health aides, our certified nursing assistants, and also some additional funds for our LPN candidates. So we just feel highly blessed. We know this, we're doing the right thing. I know Tessa and Jennifer stated earlier that this is a high demand curriculum, as well as Megan, and we can't train enough of them. We can't get enough nurses in the system. So it's a challenge, but it's so rewarding. And so I'm thankful to be here today to share our success stories and our processes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry, so much. And I just wanted to continue on with program growth and sustainment. You know, I've listed a few of the resources that we, you know, initially received and continue to receive. And I'm super proud of, you know, Terry, my partner, because, you know, she's, you know, got a reputation in our community, and she's getting grants, like she mentioned, outside. One thing I'm really excited about, our new focus is elevating the LPN to RN, and she got some funds, actually both recently got some funds to support that training. So next slide, please. So with that said, we just thank you very much, and you know, open up for questions.
Thank you, Megan. So for any folks who have questions, please go ahead and submit it in the chat box or in the question box. I have a question for probably Megan and or Susan. The question from Sharika is, when will CareerSource Florida advertise their RFP for the Workforce Investment Act grants? I don't know if you know that yet. Do you have a timing on that?
I'm going to defer to Susan. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually don't know the answer to that, but I can check into it and try to get that information out to you, Kathy, and then maybe you can share it.
Okay, great.
Ask the question.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, thanks. No worries. Jennifer, you know, one of the things that I found really interesting about the story with you all is over time it ended up requiring collaboration among employers who probably at times think of themselves as competitors. So give us some sense of that. How did that come about, and how did they come to see that by working together you actually solve the entire talent pool challenge more effectively than continuing to, you know, kind of hoard your own candidates?
It goes back to, you know, really being comfortable with the fact that it does take a village. When you talk about healthcare, you really have to think about community health. And Lee Health is a very large employer. We have services that run the gamut. Obviously, we have hospital acute care, but we already had relationships in the communities because these employers were already being fed our patients, say from an inpatient facility to an assisted living or a long-term care facility, or we'll even say another hospital such as NCH in Naples. As big as we are, we can't do it all. We can't serve everybody. We can't be everything to everyone. You need your experts in the community, and I call it healthy collaboration and competition, because we certainly all have margins to meet and a business to run, whether we're for-profit or nonprofit. That's irrelevant. But yet at the end of the day, if we all aren't staffed with the best and the brightest, quality is going to suffer in the care we're providing. And if that happens, they're going to end up in the continuum of a care somewhere and get stuck. And that's really to nobody's best interest, especially when you're talking about current healthcare being about population health. That is the essence of what population health is making sure the community as a whole is healthy. So in kind of wrapping it up, yes, we are competitors, but we all have the same mission, which is to make sure that our community members live the life to their fullest, to the healthiest capacity they can. And I think when you can look at that level, it's very hard to be selfish. So that's how it happened.
Great, thanks. Alicia is asking, were there any atypical collaborators you had to bring to the community table to help the project participants? Megan
Is
and
that
Terry?
for me? Oh.
Why don't we start with Megan and Terry?
Yeah.
Terry, I'm going to let you do that because you had our consortium, but you really brought in some other partners. Who were the EDC?
Oh, the EDC, yes. One of our largest partners is the EDC, the Space Coast Economic Development Commission. And I would say probably that partnership has, it's merged from a relationship we had when we were working, I think it was, Susan that talked about manufacturing. So we did a manufacturing initiative earlier, like 2015, 2016 with the EDC. And the way we put the program together here in Brevard County, everybody loves our recruitment model and EDC loved it. So even when I let EDC know that we transition into healthcare, the program CEO and president, she stayed with us. And she has really led us to some of the resources that we have today. So we're very, very appreciative of her support. But then others in the community, it's almost like they hear about us as like an opportunity, like our housing authority. And a lot of it, I tell you, it's by word of mouth. There's something, and I can understand why the career sources, they want to have that faith-based connection, because it's something about in that church environment, when people hear about you, they tell everyone. And so, you know, the word gets out. And as I stated earlier, even like when we send out a flyer, the flyer just goes viral. I just have to put it in a few key places and it just goes viral. So it's really interesting. And again, I know the county is long, but the word gets out. We're 73 miles long, but the word gets out when Mecca is running something. And the institutions help. The institutions help with letting students know, because prospective students will come to them and they don't have the funding, but they want to do the training. So the institution will say, well, check into Mecca, check into CareerSource. But I know Mecca and CareerSource are connected, and Terry has this process where you're not going to fall through the cracks. If you really want this, you're not going to fall through the cracks. So more people come, and being a part of Brevard Health Consortium, that's been a huge part of the process too, getting the word out.
Great. Thanks, Terry. Tessa, anything from Future Makers?
Yeah, I would echo everything Terry says. Word of mouth is huge. We did after that first recruitment event, and listen, we've had a lot of ups and downs. We've learned a lot over this process. In 6 weeks, there are a lot of gaps where people can fall through the cracks. So you know, we only had a short time. I didn't get to tell you all of our war stories, but one of the partners that I think some people may not think of, we're very committed to a multi-generational approach with Future Makers Coalition. And so we partnered with the school district, advertising to parents through Peach Jar, all the way down through, you know, pre-K and kindergarten. So, you know, one of our goals, we do target adult learners, is that those students coming up in the system no longer be first generation college students. And so we definitely advertise to parents in the school system. It's a really, really great opportunity to do that, and with the Early Learning Coalition.
Great, thanks. Santiago is asking a great question. Are these programs funded by WIOA program, or the funding came from the local coalition versus consortium you've mentioned? Megan, you want to start with that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. A majority of the LPN training dollars came from WIOA fund sources, but we do get some private grants, smaller grants that's helped with HHA and our new initiative, to advance LPNs to RNs. And
Great.
Terry?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Tessa, I was just going to say, I know you all kind of looked at, you know, the entire student journey and found some gaps along the way. So do you want to give a little sense of that?
Sure. We have a model. We are trying to make the system work in the way that it's designed and by having everyone actually work together. And so one of the things that is a part of our model is we triage people for every type of financial aid that's available to them before we use any gap funding. So we do a lot of fundraising and development around that gap funding, which has come from a variety of places, including, you know, people who care about equity, people who care about women, people who care about, you know, adult learners, people who care about healthcare. It's really just run the gamut. But we do ask that all other options be exhausted. So we ask the technical college, wherever the student enters, they are to go to CareerSource and be assessed for what aid they may be able to get there. If it's aid based on reimbursement, we'll use the gap fund to pre-reimburse for them if that's a financial barrier. We have them fill out the FAFSA. We really do try to exhaust everything before we go to that gap funding. And so on average, when people use the system here in Southwest Florida the way they should, the gap actually becomes $300 or less on average. So we can make a little bit of money go a long way, and donors love that. Donors love, if I give you $5,000, how many people can you help? We can help a lot with those numbers. And so it's a real easy sell when you're able to say, even if you can only give a small amount of money, your impact still is magnified by the way that the system is designed to work for students and employers.
Right.
I'd like to add one thing that Tessa just said, because that's so important. I recently received $1,000 from a donor, and I said, okay, what can I do with $1,000? And as Tessa said, it's gap funding. So what I'm doing with that $1,000 is I have 10 CNA candidates that are going to be going through their CNA training, and that $1,000 is going to be divided 10 ways to help pay for their Prometrics, their state exams. So, and that family, when they see that happen, they're going to be so excited. They're going to give more funding. So yes, I love that concept. I mean, I never called it gap funding, but that's exactly what it is. How can I use that little bit of money to go a long way?
Can
Great
I also
examples.
Say,
yeah, go ahead, Megan.
Terry's $1,000 donation, tell him how that happened.
Oh yes, that's so, okay. Thank you, Megan, because that's real important. We have, as I discussed earlier, we've trained so many young women to go through the training program using the funding from CareerSource, using our partners for the training. And one of my previous students who wants to become an LPN now, she came back to me. She goes, I'm working with this family and they want to make a donation to MEDCA. And this family, they're really well known. So she's a healthcare provider, and she brought the family to us, and I made the contact, and the money was here within just a couple of weeks. So yes, our students are word of mouth for us, so that's great.
Thank you, Terry and Tessa, for those great examples. We only have time for one more quick question. And Jennifer, I want to circle back to you because I know from hearing this story in Future Makers, so much of this is the employer being involved, not at the end, which is how we typically think of an employer, but really getting involved from the beginning, even in that recruiting stage. And it's helping the students see the vision that it's not just this job, but you're getting on a career path that has high growth with an employer that will continue to invest in you through education and help you continue to move up. So can you give us a quick sense of how you go about creating that vision for your future students and future employees?
Sure. You said it, where it starts at the beginning. The life cycle starts pre-recruitment. You are involved with the schools in their open houses, discussing the CNA programs, trying to get seats filled. You're not, in addition to your side by side. So as they're talking about their programs, you're also simultaneously saying, if you go through a program like this, these are your opportunities. You know, we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. We're honest. Healthcare is a tough job. A CNA is one of the hardest jobs you'll ever love doing, but I think Terry spoke to it, you have to really want it. And while we don't assess that right there in the class, we try to, or I should say the introduction, we really try to instill that and let them know that this is the real example. This is a pathway, work for Lee Health, and you through tuition assistance, future growth and advancement, the sky is the limit. So it's really helping them recruit students. Part of these, and it's the whole collaboration. Yes, we're recruiting students for the Future Makers through grant funding, but we also want to talk to every student in that seat that may or may not have had gap funding or needed it for that matter. So it's really thinking beyond this relationship, again, talking global and recognizing the importance of being there and collaborating and not kind of showing up at the end to hire those students because they're ready for you.
Great, thank you. And on that note, I'm going to wrap us up here. So thank you to Jennifer, Tessa, Terry, and Megan for really helping us see the vision of how community collaboration can take our results so much further than us working in silos. For those of you who enjoyed today's webinar, we have quite a few coming up. So if you're not already a subscriber to the FCAN e-list, I encourage you to do so. That way we'll keep you up to date on upcoming webinars, policy briefs, promising practices, etc. So I encourage you to subscribe at floridacollegeaccess.org/subscribe. And with that, thank you again, Jennifer, Tessa, Terry, and Megan. Lots of great input and really gave us a sense of what this looks like. Thank you to everyone who dialed in today. I hope you all are staying safe. And with that, enjoy your weekend. Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye.